And if you are ready to move on with me, we can start doing our little spindly branches. So keep using that same color that you have. And I'm going to be using the same brush that I have too, because I want these branches to be much smaller and thinner, and kind of go all over the place, and not as sturdy as our first branches that we created. So let's go. All right. And they can just come off from wherever. They can go wherever they want. I'm just going to start going for it. And if your paint might be starting to dry a little bit on your palette. If that's the case, for sure you can dip it in the water and kind of loosen it up a little bit. It's not like water is totally the enemy, and it definitely helps for, acrylic paint dries really quickly. So if you start to see that it's just like starting to get really globby, really thick, and it's harder for you to create these lines, definitely you can add a little paint to your paintbrush, and that'll make it easier. Especially with these thin tree branch lines, we're not worried about putting a super thick layer on or anything. So it can be a little bit more watered down, and it's not going to create a problem for you. All right, and this one doesn't have a ton like toward the bottom. You can definitely add some if you want, but I think these grow more toward the top. And they just go wherever. You can see like these are not straight, totally straight branches. Like they have curves and they have corners. And they also grow off each other. And they don't have to go straight up. They can come down. Oh, and this one, I forgot. This one is in front, so I don't want to make this branch go behind the other tree, so I better have it overlap like that. Can go up, sideways, and they'll just kind of like eventually, I mean, mine are just going to kind of disappear into nothing. I'm not worried about creating like an ending for them. I'm just going to kind of, I'm using really light pressure, and I'm just going to slowly lift my brush off so that the ends of them just disappear. And these are branches that you could just create forever. They could have like 1,000 of these. They probably do. I'm not going to create a ton of them, but you can stay with this step as long as you want. If you love these little dark branches, and maybe they'll come up and over, like overlap its own tree trunk. They'll definitely, they could start on the side, they could start in the middle of a trunk. They grow from wherever they want to, so start them from wherever you want. And just try to remember which trees are in front and which trees are behind, so that I don't have these branches that on this tree that it's way back here somehow managing to overlap this tree trunk. That wouldn't make any sense. It's just not like physically possible if it's way back there, but it's come up here suddenly and overlap this tree trunk right in front. So try to remember that. It's not the end of the world if it happens on accident. If you kind of forget and you're just like going along making these branches and you're like, oh crap, it's not really that big of a deal. But it's good to remember. Making one from the middle here. Kind of weird. I don't know if I like that one, but what are you gonna do? And same thing, like, as they come off from the main foundational branches or tree trunks, I'm trying to make them a little bit thicker toward the bottom and then thin out and disappear into nothing as they come away. my paint is starting to dry, so it's becoming a little bit harder to put these fluid lines. I'm outside, so the wind, the nice breeze that I was talking about is drying my paint faster on my palette than when I'm painting inside. But it is nice to paint out here just because it's nice to be outside. And I don't really have to worry about getting paint on my carpet. I don't have carpet out here. Because I definitely did that the other day. Even though my painting setup is nowhere near the carpet, I flung paint. I was going crazy with it. And some of it gone. All right. So like I said, you can create tons of these spindly branches if you'd like to. And just kind of have them go wherever you want. But for me, I think I'm going to call that good. I'm pretty happy. I can always go back and add more later too if I want to. This is one of those things where these can be peeking in and out of the leaves. So if you create more of these at the end, it's totally okay. You can also throw in a couple of these branches down here in the first leaves that we created, because certainly they have branches, and you could just kind of have them poking through every now and then, connecting these leaves that we made before, the green ones. But I'm not making long ones, I'm doing like little short ones as if they're like coming in and out of those leaves. So that's something you can definitely do too, if you want to. You don't have to. But if we're thinking about how these things behave in real life, then they definitely have branches connecting all of these leaves together, or growing the leaves, so it's a good thing to throw in if you want to. Okay. All right, so now we are going to, the next step is we're going to do these really bright orangey yellow leaves. So this is a good chance, if you're not quite caught up, if you are still adding your spindly branches or the little details, the scratches and the knots in your tree trunk, continue to do that. If you are finished with me this step, this is definitely a good time to blow dry if you want to try to get this, these layers that we have down as dry as possible, because we're going to be kind of breaking rules and putting our lightest color on last, which a lot of the time you don't want to do, but because it's in our foreground, that's what we're going to do. We don't want those really bright colors that we're about to put down to blend in with that dark brown that we have. So if you want to, dry this layer. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm just going to use really thick layers of paint and cover it up. But a lot of the people in my other classes found that helpful. So feel free to do that right now. Get a refill, drink your drink,